Eldari Vipers are sleek skimmers that offer a perfect compromise between the speed of a jet bike and the heavy armament of a grav tank. Well-drilled Viper squadrons move as one at breakneck speeds, evincing incredible grace as their seated gunners blast at the vulnerable rear armor of tanks or harass the flanks of infantry squads. Hello there and welcome to this paint guide. In this video, we're going to be painting the Eldari Viper in the color scheme we see on the box art, Craft World Sime Ham. Let's get started. The paints we're using are on screen now. These are just the ones that I've chosen, so feel free to swap any of them out with ones from your own collection. And same again here with all the brushes and extra equipment. Before we get started, it's worth noting that I've broken the Viper up into sub-assemblies. Don't let your eyes deceive you, this isn't fully glued together yet. So here we have the two main hull pieces, the turret, and crucially, the crystal cockpit is still on the frame as well. Now, you don't have to do any of this if you don't want to, but I find that it makes the painting process much easier. For the undercoat, I've gone with Chaos Black Spray. You could use something else if you wanted to, but there's actually loads of black sections on this vehicle, and we're actually going to be spraying some parts later with Mephiston Red anyway. With that out of the way, let's get started with our first stage. First up, we're base coating the entire Viper using Abaddon Black. This may seem kind of pointless considering the spray has already made it black, but trust us, it's worth it. We'll be applying lots of highlights to the black later, and if we ever need to correct any mistakes, it's important that the finish of the black matches the paint from the pot. Plus, because it's already black, this will only take a single coat. And when I say base coat the entire Viper, I do mean all of it, including the cockpit frame as well. This can be a little tricky, but what's really nice is that we actually have two spare pieces to practice on if we need to. With that done, we can move on. For all the areas that we want to be black on the finished model, let's give them a dry brush using Dark Reaper. Now, we will be applying a more traditional highlight later, but this gives us a great head start, especially on the underneath sections of the Viper that people won't really tend to look at as much. Once you're finished with the Dark Reaper, you can take it a step further with another dry brush. Use Thunderhawk Blue just on the very sharpest edges and raised areas. On the box art, we can see that the Viper has these really cool chevrons on the front. It's just two simple adjacent black lines of different sizes. And this is actually why we've painted this typically red section black up until this point, because now we're going to mark them out with some masking tape and paint red over the top in the next stage. Whether you're using scissors here or a sharp knife, be sure to be as careful as you can. If you're under 18, it might be worth asking an adult to help you. So here I've got two different size masking tapes, and I'm going to start with the thicker one, cutting out two pieces and sticking them together like so, almost creating a triangle. Then I'm just sticking it to the hull like so, using these vents as a bit of a guide to get it central. And once that first line is down, we can do the same thing with the thinner tape a bit further down along the model, trying to place an even gap between the two. So when you're finished, you should have something that looks like this. Now we can move on to the next stage. So with that all done, I've gone ahead and sprayed both the top hull piece and the bottom one using Mephiston Red spray. This gives us a great foundation for painting over it with Mephiston Red from the pot. I'm not taking the masking tape off just yet. First, I'm going to base coat all the red areas with Mephiston Red from the pot. And while we're at it, we can also base coat the areas that we didn't spray, like some of these parts here on the underside of the model, like on the engines. We'll also be painting the canopy red as well, so be as careful as you can on this area. Take your time and it will look great. And when you are painting around the masking tape, be as careful as you can not to get any paint underneath it. And there we are, once you've got a solid red base coat, now it's time to remove the masking tape and neaten up your chevrons. You can go back to Mephiston Red or Abaddon Black to get a neat line. Looks awesome. Now we can get back to base coating. So for all the silver areas like the thrusters, use several thin layers of lead belcher, quick and easy. To base coat the crew's helmets, lenses, screens, and also eyes, use Corax White. We can also use this to freehand some extra markings on the bright lance. This area is a little too small for tape, so just go back and forth between Corax White and Abaddon Black until you're happy with the lines. For the pilot and gunner's jackets, use Dryad Bark. Just be careful around those other areas that we've already painted. With that done, there's just one base coat left before we can move on to shading. For perhaps the tiniest detail on the model, base coat these small areas on the crew using Retributor armor. For our first shade, we're using Agrex Earthshade, and we're starting firstly with the recess shade on all the red and silver areas. This will take some time, but it will look nice and neat once you're done. And when you are done, we're also looking to shade all over the Dryad Bark and Retributor armor sections using Agrex Earthshade. And finally, to conclude our shading, apply a recess shade of Norn Oil to the few recesses on the crew's helmets. And with that finished, our Viper is now fully base coated and shaded. If you're happy with it at this stage, you can fully assemble it, base it, and send it off to the battlefield. But if you want to take it up a notch, stick around for some highlights. So to kick off the highlights, let's start with all the red sections using Wild Rider Red. Take your time and work your way across the whole model until you're happy. And if you want to take the red highlights up a notch, you can add a second highlight using Fire Dragon Bright. So we're applying this on the raised areas and also a dot highlight to all of the edges as well. To highlight all the black areas, we can use Dark Reaper. I'm leaving the underside of the hull in just that dry brush we did earlier because you can't really see it anyway. And to take that highlight up a notch as well, we can go in with Thunderhawk Blue afterwards. For the crew's clothing, I'm using Baneblade Brown, nice and simple. And before we move on to our last highlight, now is a great time to tint all the lenses, screens, and eyes using a thematic blue. And then finally, to finish off the model, let's highlight all the white with White Scar. And then just before we assemble the model back together, there's just this tiny little targeting symbol that you can pick out in the color of your choice. And with that done, now it's time to fully assemble our model. Instead of plastic glue, you may find it much easier to use PVA. This is especially important on these cockpit pieces as we don't want those fogging up. And once you've fully built the model, all that's left is the transfers and the base. You can obviously base your model however you like to match the rest of your army, but we've used Armageddon Dust, Seraphim Sepia for the shade, dry brushed the whole thing with Screaming Skull, and then painted the base rim with Steel Legion Drab. And blammo, this Eldari Viper of Craft World Simhan is finished and is now ready to speed onto the battlefield, blast at the vulnerable rear armor of tanks, or harass flanks of infantry squads. Well, that's all from me. Thanks for watching this video. In the meantime, if you are looking for more tutorials, tips, or tricks, you can check out some of the other videos on the Warhammer YouTube channel, or alternatively, you can head to a Warhammer store where our friendly staff are always happy to help. Thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.